Start.
This is Dustin Pickering at the New York Parrot Literary Corner, and I am being joined by Shaswata Gangopadhyay. I'm not sure, Gangopadhyay. It's a very, very tricky name, but I tried my best. He is one of the prominent faces of contemporary Bengali poetry who started writing in the mid-90s. He was born and brought up in Calcutta and has an interest in traveling, adventure, and classical music. He writes in Bengali, the fourth largest language of the earth, and as per UNESCO, it is the sweetest language. His poems have been published in all the major journals of Bengali literature. He has participated in different virtual poetry festivals of Europe and both North and Latin America. He has the books of poems Inhabitant of Pluto Planet, Offspring of Monster, and Holes of Red Crabs. Recently, his poems have been exhibited in a poetry festival in Piccolo Museum, Italy, the only poetry museum of the world. English translations of his poems have been published in various journals and anthologies of Europe, America, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Very recently, he's been recognized as International Poet of the Week by the Poet magazine out of London. So we're going to begin, and if you want to say anything about yourself that's not featured in the introduction, feel free.
Okay. Thank you, Dustin, for a nice introduction. It was little exaggerated too. Now, I am from India, the third world. I am from Asia. So I write in Bengali what he has told, that Bengali is the fourth largest native language of the world. And I am very much proud that I write in such a language which has been recognized as the sweetest language by the UNESCO. Mm-hmm. So that is really pride for me, because as you know that even Spanish is the second, English is the third, and Bengali is the fourth. Now I stay at Calcutta, which is the cultural capital of India. And I think regarding in India, there is no singular Indian language, because India is such a vast country and there are so many natives are here, so many languages, at least 26 to 27 recognized big languages are here. So India is such a country, there is no Indian language. There are so many languages, and out of which I write in the biggest language and staying in the cultural capital. That's for me.
So how, speaking, you speak English, obviously, and Bengali as well. So how important is translation, do you think, to the world of literature?
Okay. Now, actually, Dustin, we are all living in an age of communication, because I personally write from 1995. And if you consider this total last 20 years, the first word which will describe our time is the communications, because it is the time of internet, mobile, Facebook, WhatsApp. So communication is very much important. And what I just going to say that translation, the utility of translation has becoming more important day by day. Just if you consider, if there is no any kind of translations, so how can a poet like Baudelaire or Rainer Maria Rilke, their poems cannot be spread across the world. But to myself, whenever I was writing from last late 90s. So in that time, one writer who is very much giant and who is the, I think, forerunner of magic realism, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I was really obsessed with his writings. So also in that case, he was a writer of Spanish. So if there is no translation, I think everything will be very much blocked, and all writings will be geographically very much, very much restricted. Now, regarding my poems, in the last 1 year, my poems are initially was widely translated in English. And after that, there are certain magical things happened. first of all, which you have mentioned, my poems in English translation were exhibited and preserved in Piccolo Museum, which was recently opened in Italy, the only poetry museum. So from that, my poems was take off. Then after that, my poems were widely spread across 6 continents, and now at least in 15 international, one of the more of the best anthologies, my poems have been included. That is only because of translations, and now after particularly recognized as the international poet by the renowned poet magazine of London. Now I was offering for the translation of my poems in so many languages, like in Spanish, it has been translated, in Arabic, in Italian, in Greek also. Even recently, I was invited in a international poetry festival of China that was happened in virtually. There also my poems have been translated in Mandarin Chinese, which is the #1 native language of the earth because of the huge population of China. So that's why I was very much interested to talk about the utility of translation, because our Bengali literature itself is so much reached, but there is hardly any translation of recent times Bengali poetry or Bengali prose. So actually, in that case, the outer world, when I communicated to any poets of other continents, they have taken so much initiative for their own translation or for spreading their own poems. But in Bengali, unfortunately, these things are lacking. But at least I think in the coming years, it will be much, situation will be much improved.
Do you think when you transfer from one language to another, I mean, how do you think it translates? Does it, how much is lost in the translation? I mean, and what do you think, is there any way to overcome that?
No, actually what is happening, as we all know, that whenever a poem is translated from a native language to a foreign language, definitely I think on an average 70% is there, 30% is lost. But another thing is there, it also depends upon the nature of the poem. Because suppose if one's poem is very much communicative, or like it's just like anti-poetry. So in that case, the chances of losing is less, I think. So whenever I talk about my poems, I write in such a language which runs between the so-called poetry and the anti-poetry. My language is very much communicative, because I don't believe in what should I say? I don't believe in cultivating obscurity, because in writing in Bengali, I don't write in Hebrew or Latin. So I am always in favor of communication and transferring my thoughts to another. So in that case, what I think regarding my poetry, I think at least 80% is there. Another thing is there, whenever a translator is doing translation, if the poet actively taking part in that process, in that case, thing is much better, because that corresponding poet can do the fine tuning.
So and I think a lot of people say when the translator is working into another language, they take the national character of that language from the poem that they're translating, and I think that's a powerful statement of how it can be, poetry can be both flexible to, you know, and also it can retain what is actually written in the original language, but you can also be flexible to the national character. Have you found any interesting takes on that when you see your translations, or when you hear them maybe, I don't know, retranslated or something, you know, when you read the poems translated, do you ever notice there's a very different character to the poems in some ways? Some of the words change differently or something of that nature.
Yes, you are 100% true, because many times it has been done by translating. Like my poems have been initially translated to English, then from English it has been translated to Chinese. Just I am giving an example. So in that case, I have written one thing, it may happen the entire representation was different. So in that case, so I don't like, just for example, I don't understand Chinese, but whenever my poems have been translated to English, I am just repeating the things. If in a workshop, translator and the corresponding poet takes part, in that case, at least one can overcome these difficulties and these limitations of translations. But on the other hand, what you have told, that retranslating, in that case, we are helpless, because right now my poems have been translated to Spanish from Bengali itself. So in that case, that alarming situation is not there. But whenever my poems have been translated from the English, in that case, that risk factor is there. But still, I think if there is no translation, there is a proverb, something is better than nothing. So in that case, one should remember that thing. I
Do
particularly believe.
readers in other languages, do they comment on your translations? Have you had any interesting remarks regarding your your poetry in other languages?
Yes, actually, in Chicago, there is a very famous group, Cultivating Voices. Okay, now in last August, I was first invited there. So I was asked to recite my poems for 10 minutes. But somehow my poems were appreciated so much. I was recited for more than 20 minutes. And there is a rules and regulations that they normally invite a poet once in a year. But in last 6 months, I was invited thrice, August, October, and January. Now, in the month of January, actually, one thing is there, I am not doing any self-praise, that my poems are very much urban and my poems are very much communicative. That's why I think one junior poet has told that your poem, there is no, there is, your poems floats in such a space which is timeless and countryless. Because just one thing I just want to mention, in the age of internet, we are not basically any inhabitant of a particular country, because we are not citizen, we are now the netizen. So now just returning to the Cultivating Voices. So in the last January, when I stood to recite my poems, one very renowned poet of American poetry, he has done a very small remarks, which is really very worth remembering, that he has told that, oh, Shaswata, I love to drink his poetry. So that was a really wonderful praise for me, that drink his poetry. So just like that, and also to be very frank, after the spreading of my poems from one continent to another, now every week I am getting 2 or 3 offers from the Global Poetry Festival across the world. Now this 27 to 29, there is a huge world festival is going on in Argentina. I was invited there. That was also virtually. I was also invited to China last 21st of that was the World Poetry Day, as you know very well. So that day particularly, I got invitation from Zoom Poetry Festival from Russia, from Greece, and from Tunisia, which is one of the smallest country of Northern Africa. So that is all because of the this wonderful age of internet, I think, and again the
Absolutely.
power of communication.
So would you like to give us a sample of your work so we can see what's translating? Just read us a couple of poems maybe.
Yes, yes. I am just reading few of my poems, because all these talks are meaningless unless my poems wins your heart.
Right.
Exactly.
I love that.
I love it. Thank you. A day in a shopping mall. As soon I push myself in through the glass door, 2 silky sylphs come floating like the bubbles of water. Most welcome, sir. Just take this in your finger. This is the key to trade town and walk with your trolley. All around, there are so many tinsel offers displayed. If you get an item elsewhere less costly, you will get twice as much the margin. If you buy a bed sheet, your sleep at nights is assured. In each of your eyelids will come wavy and foamy dose. If you purchase condom in bulk for the whole year, you will get 25% discount on each weekend tour. From leaping parts of my credit card, I see our joys and sorrows, smiles and tears, when I know not. All are sold out like frozen fishes in the packet. It's beyond 9 o'clock. As night falls, lights are off. When coming out, few others whisper mildly. If you procure love in your hand, along with that, your deep sighs are free.
It's excellent.
Thank you.
When you write in Bengali, do
Yes.
you have, most people will say that that's the perspective of perception of most people across the globe. They believe that Indians usually have a lyrical sound at the back of their mind when they are writing poems. When you write in your local language, do you have a kind of sound that you follow when you write, or beat?
Actually, what is happening that Bengalis are very much soft and very much romantic. Now, actually, these poems of mine, these are mainly in the prose form. So whenever I write in the rhythm, in that case, many a times lyrical things happen. But what is happening, the poems which were written in rhythm, that's one, they are not very much ideal for translation. As you know that, hopefully I can, you can understand that. So personally, my poems are very much smart, very much what I have told earlier, that the language, it runs between the so-called poetry and anti-poetry, because my poems are just like knives. I will later I will recite one poem, which is the
So
poem of
beyond
Hard
that,
World. So in that case, that I have mentioned that I always throw knives to the rest of the world. So in that case, what is happening after being translated, I found across the world that these languages injects very rapidly, because this language is very much direct. And another poem just I want to recite, you can correlate, because there is no local thing in here. These are all I think having international flavor. Gigolo. I watch him from a distance, the young guy standing at Free School Street with a hanky tied to his right hand. Tall in height, he appears to be a sailor unknown. Upon his deep blue t-shirt glows a shining line. If being sexy is a crime, arrest me soon. The girls beside measure him with an oblique look. Some of them lick their lips, as if it's storm in the wild desert, where snakes crawls with hissing sounds. Such is blazing pain all over the pores of their body. Halogen flashing, serially on the pavements, night descends, as if with endless froth from the corks of champagne. The night, which is also a woman fasting, beckoning the boy from inside of a black car, and then taking him in it, starts towards no destination.
impressive. Some people believe that poetry or music is, of course, a universal language,
Yes.
and it is not until you understand the meaning of a musical presentation before you dance to it. Because the muse, it is from the word muse that we derive the word music. And there is no music without poetry. The written
Yes.
form of music is the poetry itself. So, in a
Mhm.
nutshell, our show today will not be complete if you don't give us anything like Bengali poetry
Mm,
presentation.
I was
And
about
I'm
to ask
sure
that myself.
you've written a lot. People have translated your work, and you are an ambassador of Bengali poetry. Give us a Bengali poem.
Yes, you are truly right that I think among the all forms of arts, I think music is the best because there is
Mhm.
no need of translation. And another very famous saying was there that music is the medicine of broken heart, because all which we are writing, I have told earlier, if it does not win one's heart, it is meaningless. Because regarding my poem, I am a little bit cerebral, but ultimately I have to win one's heart. I have to act as a medicine, eh, or medicine in the one's wound. So in that case, music is unparalleled. Yes, music is, I think, scores over even poetry, because in my bio, Dustin knows that I am very much fond of Indian classical music, because
Mhm.
in my house there is a tradition of classical music. And if anyone's in Bengali reads my poems, particularly which is written in rhythm, one the very first book review about my first book, there is a written thing which is little funny, that one contemporary poet of mine, she has written that Shaswata was really, I think he is a
I
hidden
think
drama. So I think so that's the thing, because I am personally very much fond of music, and I am every time whenever I do any official work in laptop, always there is a background music from YouTube. So to your question, really there is a, I think they are just like twin sister. This music and poetry, and
Mhm.
each one is there is a mutual connection. They are just like Siamese twins. So each one
Yeah.
is enriching from other ones.
Can you read us
so. I
something
want you
in
to give us a
Bengali?
Bengali poem. We want to
Yes,
listen to you presenting a Bengali poem
but in
in
Bengali.
Bengali language.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, yes. Because in the world, out of every 6%, one is Bengali. So if I recite Bengali in the persons who are watching this, okay. Now regarding one poem, I just want to say something. In southern part of India, there is a very famous flower, Kurinji flower, which blooms every 12 years gap. Okay. Now, this is the introduction of this poem, and I am reading it Bengali.
Mhm.
বিরহ গাথা, তুমি তো দুষ্প্রাপ্য খুব, দেখা পাওয়া সত্যিই কঠিন। নীলগিরি পাহাড়ে ফোটে 12 বছরের ব্যবধানে, যে কুরিঞ্জি ফুল তুমি যেন সেই একই প্রজাতির। ফুটেছ আবার তুমি এ ঋতুতে উপত্যকা জুড়ে। কুষ্ঠরোগীদের দল ভিড় করে, তাদের বিশ্বাস দুর্লভ তোমাকে শিলে বেটে নিয়ে ক্ষতস্থানে দিলে নিরাময় পাবে তারা, সেরে যাবে প্রাচীন অসুখ। আরোগ্যের জন্যে অক্ষরেখা ধরে আমিও এসেছি, একই গ্রহে আছি তবু দেখা হয় না। কুয়াশা সরিয়ে ক্ষয়ে যাওয়া সিঁড়ি ভেঙে তোমার খোঁজেই উঠে যাব। ক্লান্ত হয়ে পাথরের খাঁজে শুয়ে থাকবো, ঝরে পড়ো আমার শরীরে, মাথা থেকে দুই পায়ের আঙুলে তোমার পাপড়ি খোলো, ঝড় উঠুক ঠোঁট রাখো যদি, তুমি আমার স্যানিটোরিয়াম গোপন ঔষধি।
Hmm.
fantastic. The way you present it like a poem, which as you listen, you get to see the flow bit by
Right.
bit. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us. But
Acha,
before
one
the end
thing,
of this show, you are going to give us a Bengali music, a kind of lyrical Bengali song where we have to listen to the flow, the way you present that. So anyway,
no,
let's move on. Dustin.
I will not do that, but I will definitely recite one poem, I think, which is
Uh-huh.
very much relevant. Uh,
Okay.
you just listen because this is such a poem just written few hours back,
Okay.
and I am really excited and proud to present this poem because the name of the poem is Poetry of Third World.
Impressive.
I am nobody, nobody at all, just a cultivator of cotton belonging to the third world. I am his youngest son. I have grown up by swallowing the froth of the sea. On my burnt skin, there is printed the world map all over the body. Hunger rises in spiral motion around my stomach. If you give me love, I will multiply it 3 times by sheer magic and put it under your feet. And if you give me hatred, if you offend me from my top to bottom, I will come back not to take revenge, but to my writing papers. And I will throw each of my poems one after another, just like daggers. Yes, all the boys of the third world are just like this.
Hmm.
Fantastic. That's fabulous. Thank you for that presentation. How do you write when you just told us that you wrote this not quite long ago before we started the show? So how do you get just into the writing? Do you just write whenever you feel like writing, or something inspire you to write?
No, actually, in my case, there is a little funny obsession about my writings because I don't believe that one is not supposed to bath twice in the same river. So that's why, but that's a real strange obsession about my poetry because I don't repeat. Now, what is happening in many of the poems? There is a huge ratio of the what I am just observing around the world, and in many of my poems, there is also myself is present in a higher ratio. My anger, my sorrow, what should I my is these all are presented uh, across my poems because I am representing from the first third world. Okay, now in third world there are so much. I think we are all very much deprived, but now because of the huge connectivity, we are just walking shoulder after shoulder with the poets of first and second world. Now, another thing, since we are now hugely connected with the world literature, so there is no known at all there is any kind of inferiority complex. Because
Mm-hmm.
what is happening in last 1 year, my poems have been spread across the world. So that is a matter of pride for, I think myself that also boost of confidence very much. So these, that's why there is no, I think, demarcation from Asia and America because now we are all like netizen, which I have mentioned earlier. So the world has become truly a global village, so much small. And in the last 1 year, you will also agree that the greatest invention was the Zoom, because
Hmm.
through Zoom we are now connected so much. In the last 1 year, during
I,
last one,
I
I
have
had
I have a question for you. While you are talking, you made mention of third world. Do you still believe that
no, I
India
don't
is
believe.
still part
No,
of a third world
actually, I
country?
have mentioned because the last poem I have recited that was poetry of third world. That's why. but in
Now, what I'm
there is
saying
no
is
difference.
India still a third world country, according based on your belief?
No, actually, right now, I don't believe that we are part of third world right now, because last 5 years, because financially India has become a very powerful nation of the world. You know, among the top 10 richest person of the world, 3 or 4 are Indians. But still, there is poverty. Still, there is illiteracy. That thing also prominent, I think.
There is poverty in the United States. There is poverty in Britain. There is poverty in Germany. There is no way there is no poverty. It depends on
Right.
how the media brand the poverty level.
Yes, yes.
We know what is going on in every part of the globe, especially with this modern technology. So poverty is a universal problem. It is not
Problem.
restricted to India alone. So, and that should not be a yardstick to determine whether a country is third world or not. What
Yes.
defines third world is the media itself and the establishment, the people
Yes.
in control of the power
Actually,
across the
in case
globe.
of India, the main problem is the overpopulation. That's why poverty is, as you have told, that poverty is everywhere. But India, in certain part of India, it is very much acute because of, once again, it's because of overpopulation.
Mhm.
Even one family, they have five children, like that. Because that's why overpopulation is the root cause of all things like illiteracy or poverty. But in the last 15 years, things have been much improved. And as I stay in a metro city, in a very big city called Calcutta. So I think there is no differentiation between any US city and Kolkata right now, because all amenities are there. Uh, so it has become truly a part of global village.
Oh, okay. I'm still going back to that.
Hmm.
You talk about population. How about China? China will never say that they are a third world country, and
Yes,
their
yes.
population is, I believe, more than
Number one.
India. So,
Uh,
what do you want to say to that?
no, actually, in case of China, they are technologically much more advanced. And another peculiar things about China, I think you also know that there is no corporate sector. Everything has been occupied by the government. So that's why I think there's, what should I say, everything is streamlined in China. They are technologically so sound. Even in the part of sports, when they participate in Olympics, they are one of the highest medal winner.
Hmm.
So there is no doubt that China, though our very much neighboring country, but they are much more well advanced.
So, if you, in the next, as a philosophical person, because if you're a poet, you philosophize. There's no way you'll be a poet you don't philosophize. How do you see India in the next 20 years?
India in last 20 years very successfully has becoming a part of this global village. That's the thing, because we all poets now, we are kind of exchanging things with the Western world. So in terms of this, apart from this communication, also the financial status of the all Indian families, what should I say, that status has been radically improved in last 20 years. Because if anyone considered that suppose in last 30 years, many percent they don't have their own houses. But now in India, maximum percent in the cities or even in the countryside, they are now able to purchase their own houses, own flats, own
Mhm.
bungalows, one own residence. So that is a clear-cut sign of the improvement of the society, and also the standard of living has really gone in a much better way. That has
Mhm.
been very much improved. So now India now in a flyer, I think India is now a flyer in a very much in a part of very progressive. India is now a very progressive country, and it has taken off in a jet plane, I think.
So we have
Nice.
about 7 minutes left. Would you like to read another poem?
Yes, definitely.
If you're joining
One
us for the
poem.
first time on this show, this is Parrot Literary Corner with Mutiu, Olawuyi, and Dustin Pickering, and our guest today is Shaswata from India, an ambassador of Bengali poetry. Over to you, Shaswata.
Now I am reading one poem which is very much relevant because the name of the poem is Pandemic. Pandemic. In the genitals of a prostitute, if the spider weaves a net, you have to understand that country's GDP growth rate is less than 3%. Unemployment is increasing day by day. If a saint burns incense in the crematorium and then read pornography, taking out of his bag, you have to understand in the next 1 year, there will not be a single drop of rain here. If a drunk leaves the tavern, run with a sigh in the middle of the night. If his shadow moves with him, can't stick. Then you have to understand in next 7 days, from finger to finger, from lips to lips, the deadly virus will spread rapidly. The mask that is worn all the time will get struck on our face and cannot be opened by dragging. Thank you.
I find that's it's very hard to categorize a poem like that. It's very it has a little bit of surrealism, kind of expressionism underlying it, but it's its own thing. It's very much it's an individualistic piece. So we have about 4.5 minutes. Would you like to share any last advice for writers, poets around the world, artists in general?
What you are asking? Should I read any poems or?
What message do you have for what final message do you have for viewers and creative minds across the globe?
Right. Okay, now just at the last, I just want to say that there is no demarcation of any border line of any country in the earth. Because sitting in the northern parts of Kolkata, I am now well connected with the entire 6 continents of the earth. And it's really a strange thing for me that I have been invited like Poetry Festival of Galapagos or Cuba or New Zealand like that. So there is no separate countries in the earth. We all are in a single platform, and world has really become so small that we can take it in our fist. So we all poets are now united, are very much well connected with each other, and believe it or not, I think I can remember one Sunday, just 2 weeks before, I was staying alone in my flat, and the first message I got in the morning, that was a poet from Bolivia. Then in the morning, I was chatting just in my Facebook Messenger, like poet with Bolivia, poet with Greece, poet with Indonesia, poet even with Tunisia, and even a few countries from Latin America like Venezuela, poets from New Zealand. So that the world has become just a local tea corner, local tea stall. In the earlier days in our locality, when we chat in the Sunday morning, we all neighborhood boys of the around same age. So world has become just like a tea stall. So we are all connected. Our hands are tied with each other. And now it is the time to unite, remain united with all the poets. And there is no demarcation of any countries. And we will remain united. That's the final thing I should say.
Subscribe to the channel. This is the New York Parrot Literary Corner, and I am Dustin Pickering. And we had today Shaswata Gangopadhyay from India, and we will be back tomorrow with yet another episode. And thank you very much for coming on the show today. And thanks to our viewers as well. Like I said, just subscribe to the channel for more exciting literary content. This is the New York Parrot Literary Corner.